right, anglers, you're watching Trout West, and today we got a good one for you. We're going to talk about the top fishing spots for Lake Sabrina. This is a very popular recreational fishing and sightseeing lake just southwest of Bishop, California. So before we get into this, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button to join us on future videos just like this one and all kinds of fishing adventures. And make sure you guys get something to drink, maybe something to eat. This is a long video because we got a lot of information to talk about. So let's get right into it. Lake Sabrina. Fishing spots. We like to talk about some information about the area and directions and such, just so you guys are more comfortable getting there. Just in case this is the first time you've ever been to the lake, you want to head towards Bishop, California, and head southwest on Highway 168 toward the city of Aspendell. Once you get there, there is a split in the highway a little ways before here. Now you'll see right here at the Fort Jeffrey campground, you do not want to go toward South Lake. You want to make sure that you guys are headed toward Lake Sabrina, which is pretty much just go straight. If you make any left turns, you're probably not going to make it to the lake. There are a few signs on the road, but if you go in the middle of the night or if there's bad weather, you might miss these signs. So make sure you guys are headed to the right lake. We will cover South Lake in another video. This lake is an absolute gem of a lake as far as the scenery goes. It's one of the best ones, man. The backdrop on this lake is just phenomenal. And we will be dropping some drone shots in this video at times just to kind of give you an absolute visual of what it really looks like at this lake. It's incredible. So once you're at the lake, you guys want to make sure that if you're not all stocked up, stop off at the Lake Sabrina boat landing. They do have a small cafe, and they do sell a couple of things here for fishing gear and such. It's not a Walmart, guys, but they do have a couple things that you guys can pick up. And historically, they've had some amazing pies at this location. The owner, recently, the people that ran the concessionaire retired, and they sold it to the people that own Parcher's Resort and the South Lake Landing. So they're running both sides, and so far doing a really, really good job up there. So definitely an option to go into that little shop and talk to them, because they do have most up-to-date information on the fishing conditions at the lake, since they are there every day. So, but once you get there, there are a few parking lots that you can choose from. It can get kind of busy here in the middle of summer, and some of the more holiday weekends and such. This parking lot isn't that big, and as you can see, there's only so many spots, and then there's an overflow spot over here. And on some of the busier weekends, I've seen cars parked all the way down the road, but it's been a while since I've seen it that way. So the benefit of using Google Maps is we can see the overall condition of the lake when it wasn't full. And this will help us describe why some of these places are better to fish than others. Currently, the lake is full. We had an amazing record snow year this last year. And hopefully, if you're seeing this several years down the line, that is still the case. But if it does start to dry out, you will have an idea of what that will help, how this could help you, basically, because you'll see that it was quite dry when they shot these satellite shots. So, but let's get into it, guys. Spot number 1. So for spot number 1, we're going to talk about fishing the boat ramp area. And I don't mean that you're going to stand on the boat ramp and cast, because that's obviously not a good idea when you got boats coming and going. But you can see in this shot, there are some docks that were laying around here. Well, these docks are actually in use now, and they probably added to it since the lake filled up. And so the water can run all the way up into this corner over here, and there would just be a sliver of dirt right over in this way. But yes, all of this would be underwater, all of this. So they do stock the lake right here. There's no other way to access this lake by car, except for this area that you're seeing in the shot right here, because everything from all other directions is wilderness. So when the stocking truck pulls up, they pull up to this boat ramp and dump the fish. Now, the first options to fish, depending on water levels, will be these rocks right here in this area. When the levels are just right, you can walk across right here and step onto these rocks and fish like kind of like on a small island right here. And that is very hit and miss depending on the years. A couple of years ago, when the water was down, it looked like this. So you'd have to walk pretty far to even get to the water. But right now, the water is all the way up here. But you can fish on the sides of this dock. Just understand that if you are fishing here, people will be coming and going with boats, and it can disturb the fishing a little bit. But with the plants being here in between those boat launches, the fishing can be amazing. There's not much to get hung up on the bottom. It's just basically sand and dirt. There are a few boulder piles out here, as you guys can see. So depending on where you're casting, if you land your weights into those boulder patches, it could get stuck. But for the most part, this area is a spectacular spot to try lures, jigs, and other things because of the lack of debris along the bottom. Not all of the fishing spots are like that, and we'll get into those spots after this. But this is a great spot for the basic reason that this is the source of all the fish. So when they plant through the summer, these are great places to try and are quickly accessed right out of the parking lot. Again, very limited when it's full as far as access because of the water levels block off all this, and it's just really hard to get into. But the water levels are down. You guys will pull up and you'll see plenty of room. It's more of an etiquette thing here as far as fishing here as opposed to like technique or technical aspects of fishing it. It's just, be courteous of the fact that they're running a business and safety reasons. You want to make sure you're not casting into the paths of boats that are coming and going from the area. So another option is off to the right. It's still the same habitat, but here at the dam, you can walk along up top here many times. Now, sometimes, like I said, the water is up pretty high and the water could be all the way over here. But a lot of times there is a way to get down over this way and fish off of these rocks. Now you can see there is quite the drop off right here, and it drops off pretty good. And a lot of fish, even when the lake is full, a lot of those fish will end up hanging out over here because of the outlet that comes out of this side. So you can see where the water is coming out of the lake right here. So there's a pretty good draw of current right here that keeps fish in this area. So with the flow of water constantly going through here, you can imagine that there is a really good flow of bait and basically a food source for the fish. It's like a conveyor of fish food going into the dam right here. So fishing off of these rocks is not for somebody who's not very nimble. This isn't like an ADA fishing area at all. I mean, this is quite a rough spot to fish from, but it is possible. And people will even hop down from right over here, walking along the top of the dam, and they'll hop down and kind of, billy goat their way down here. But I don't recommend, did I say billy goat? Maybe mountain goat, but they mountain goat their way down over here, and you can get into that. So, but this is just a great place to start out because it's so close to the parking lot. You don't have to walk very far, and you can get some cast in there. And again, the people that run this concessionaire do not mind. It's totally legal to fish here. You can do it. Again, just be respectful of the operations going on. But that's why this spot makes one of my top fishing spots, because it is right where they stock the lake. And there are times when the fishing right in this area can just be red hot. I mean, catching 100 fish here some days isn't impossible. I've done it many times over the 30 years that I've been fishing this lake. So definitely put this on your radar. So let's get on to the next spot. For my number 2 spot is this first peninsula. Now, Where's the peninsula? Well, you can kind of see it. It's right here. But when the lake is full, the water will inundate all of this right in here, and you will see basically just this island out here. And then there's another island right here. And those will be inaccessible when the lake is absolutely full. But when the water is down, or if you guys get a boat from the boat ramp or bring your own boat, however that is, you can even float tube over here. You can fish in this area either way. So um, there are so many different options here. But the reason why this makes a top spot, because as you can see, even when the water's down, the fish have like a direct path to get here. And this is one of the first main pools of the lake right here. So the fish, even though when the water is down or full pool, can feel that current coming in from the back of the lake and will make their way all the way through here. And what ends up happening is once they get over here, it's actually quite deep in here, and especially when the lake is full. I mean, it's a real drop off in here, and you can almost see the bottom. I want to say at full pool, some of this might be 30, 40 feet deep in here, and it's plenty deep for these fish. This water is always ice cold, and they have no problems hanging out here. So there are no inlets or any other water sources around here. But what they do like is the structure. You do have like a rocky structure here, and we'll zoom in right here. But you can see all those rocks. Now, this is one of those places that if you cast your bait out with like a egg sinker, it's going to get down into these rocks and you're going to lose it forever. So do yourself a favor and look up a water bobber or a water bubble. Some people call them, there's another one, they like a slip bobber, but a slip bobber can be confused with other slip bobbers that have totally different uses. But these are more formally, there's a company called Cast a Bubble that makes these, and some major companies called South Bend also make these. But we'll drop some links in the description below if you guys are interested in buying those. But they will help you from getting stuck. But this area is one of the first hikeable spots. You can see the trail that runs along here. We'll zoom in a little bit. But this is the lake trail right here. And normally it's right along the water. And then you can kind of skip across right here depending on how full the lake is. But right now, as you can see, it wasn't full, and you can easily walk over here. You didn't even need to walk on the rocks. You could just walk down over this way. It looks like somebody was even driving over here at one point. But yeah, I mean, it's an excellent spot. It's one of the first accessible spots. And like I say, habitat-wise, it's that drop-off from these islands that really attract the fish. And I've caught a lot of fish over here over the years. This is a good lure spot if you do use bait, and you're probably going to get hung up quite a bit. So I recommend if you fish this area, stick to lures, jigs, things like that don't get just stuck on the bottom, and you guys will be in good shape. If the water is down, consider just going over this way, fishing off of this area here as opposed to over here. You can see the shoreline's quite nice. A lot less stuff in the water right here. And this would be where you might want to fish for with bait instead of getting stuck over in this rock pile area. So, but definitely on the list. And again, you will have seen some drone shots in this mix. We'll put some in there and talk about the different features as we go along. To talk about the narrows, and there are actually a couple of these. It's not just this one, but there are a few of these. Now, one of them is back here by the boat ramp, and you can see it right here. Is even when the lake is full, I recommend these places. So you can kind of see and use these markers for when you come to the lake to understand where they are. But here's why it's important. Now, these are not necessarily accessible all the time. In fact, when the lake is full, you're only going to get to these places by boat or float tube. And but it is worth talking about because of how productive they are. And what you get is it's kind of a choke point in the water system. And anybody that knows like hydrodynamics and stuff like that, hydrology, you will know that things will push back and forth through here. It creates kind of like a current. And that is what trout like. They love current. And you can see there's another one right here. But this is my favorite one right here because this divides the lake into two areas. And we'll talk about the rest of that in a minute. But because this is like the first area from the back main pool, like a little choke point here, and it drops off a little bit in this cove. And the reason what this really all is was the original river path leading out of the original Lake Sabrina. And again, we'll talk about all that in a minute, but this is the original creek path, and it would flow through these narrows before they put the dam in the way over here, blocking off the path of that creek. So Bishop Creek used to flow through here, and that just created a nice little channel. Well, the fish still follow that path to this day and hang out in these areas in very high concentrations. And you can see when the lake's down, man, you could really access this area easy. But when the water level's up, which would be all the way to where you see the vegetation start right here, you pretty much would have to launch it from shore to get it out there. But it's almost possible from like right here to get it out there into the channel with a spoon or even a bait. But you can access this point through the trail. You can see anywhere you see plants, it means even at full pool, you can walk into these areas and still access it. So as you can see, definitely accessible from shore. And right in here, you can maybe get it out there. But these little areas right here, and again, we'll produce some drone shots along this to help you guys understand what you're looking at a little better. But these little choke points are amazing fishing spots because of the flow, and fish are always in here. It doesn't matter the time of year. There's always fish hiding out through here. Now, if you're trolling, you want to troll through these channels, or if you're float tubing, you want to hang out along the edges of it and cast into these channels. And you guys will have an absolute ball at all the fish you guys are going to catch in those areas. It's just an amazing spot. And like I said, there is more than one. You got to know that old path. So I highly recommend before Google changes the picture, which is probably going to happen any day, because the water level did come up and they snap new pictures every so often. But this will help you. And of course, you can always come back to this video and it will be time stamped on there forever. And you guys can use this, but you can see the natural channel, and that is what you are looking for. So the narrows, the natural channel, whatever you want to call it, that is definitely a spot or a series of spots that you guys want to check out when you're fishing Lake Sabrina. All right, with that, let's move on to the next spot. So for the next spot, we're going to talk about the rear peninsula. This is the back peninsula. It's the last fishing spot from the main trail that I recommend if you guys are just looking to do a short trip. Now, and I'll explain why that it changes once you leave this area. But if you guys want to do a short hike to the back pool, this is the first spot that you can come to. It's not too far of a hike, and it is worth it. I would say for most families, you guys can make it here and get a good look at the back pool. And from this area, you can hear the waterfalls at the back of the lake pretty good. And on a really, really quiet day, you can hear those falls from the boat ramp. But for sure, back in here, you guys can hear that water flow, and it is something else to hear, especially in the spring. But right here, you can see you get another drop off at the back peninsula. Now, right here, man, look at that drop off. This drop off is spectacular, and the fish are always hanging out here. When the water was down like this, and when it first came down, and the water dropped even more than this before the satellite shot was taken, and there were some real, real big fish that were taken from back here. As obviously you can see, it was a concentrated area, and this was down to a trickle. This was actually back to a flowing river right through here when the water was that far down. It was not a lake. it had choked off probably about right in here, and this became a river once again. But some real nice fish are always caught back here. And this is a very, very, very productive area to fish. And mainly because, like I said, the habitat is perfect. You got a nice drop off and a good flow of water current going through here. And again, that is the biggest thing, is that drop off. It gets real deep back here, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. But like I said earlier, this is the best spot for like a short day hike to get like your whole Lake Sabrina experience. You don't need to do the whole lake, but to get to this is not that far of a hike. It can get a little challenging in some of these places. This is not the smoothest trail. It's kind of a rocky trail. So definitely, if you have walking issues, maybe not do this trail. But if most families should be good to walk to this point right here. And it's a great spot to throw down some picnic and hang out and just enjoy the views while you catch a couple of fish. You can see all the goat trails in this area. That's because when the lake is full, you really don't have any other options. Like, this is it. And so once you leave this spot, it's kind of a rocky scree area. You can see the trail cutting through right here. And it is a rocky mess, guys. So this is probably, like I said, the farthest you want to hike for like a short day hike. But what a fishing spot, what a view, great habitat, the possibility of some really big fish always right here. And again, a little less rocky here for bait. You could probably throw bait here. The rocks that are here are a little smoother and not so chunky as the other spot that I mentioned. You could do it. You could cast like an egg weight here and probably get away with it. But you do have that chance of getting stuck. When I first fished this lake 30 years ago, I kept getting stuck and losing weights left and right. I had no idea why until the lake went down. And then I figured it out, obviously, because of all these rocks. It's just so easy to lose everything. So just keep that in mind. Again, get real familiar with casting a spoon, a jig, any kind of lure, because it's so much more productive here. Or even just use a bobber off the surface, and you guys will do pretty well. So definitely on the list of spots to fish at this lake. Always productive and one of the better views of the lake. So let's get into the next spot, and it is a big one. So here in the main pool, and what this actually is in the back of the lake here, this is the real Lake Sabrina. This is the original main pool, the natural lake that was here long before they dammed it up for hydroelectric power. That's what this is, guys. This was the main pool. And it is a deep lake. It's one of the deeper lakes in the Eastern Sierra. They say it's exceeding like 260 feet, possibly even deeper. I don't know if anybody's done any real tests as of the last maybe 10 years when things got a little more technologically advanced. But the last word I had was that it was about 260 feet deep. And, comment below if you guys ever boated this with some Garmin technology and maybe found the exact depths. But that's the word, that it's pretty close to 300 feet deep, which is really deep for a natural lake, especially an alpine lake. It's quite deep. So, but this area is obviously a great habitat. Fish are not hanging out in 300 feet of water. So mainly you want to focus on the shoreline of this whole thing. Now, you can catch some trout trolling across the back of this lake, like right through the middle, but it is not as productive. And the time of day to do that would be in the morning when a lot of the trout are out here on the surface. And through the day, they'll make their way into these bays and looking for food. And one of the other spots, which is nearby this location, we'll talk about in a minute. But it is worth talking about as one of the spots. And that's why we're not really doing a top 5 necessarily on this lake, because there are just more than 5 spots. But we'll talk about, again, some of the better locations. And this back pool is always so good. and is probably your best shot at catching something big in this lake is hanging out back here. And we have a few spots in mind that we're going to get to on the next location. But as a whole, this back pool, because it's so deep, you want to hang out in this transition right here, right at the edge of this bay right here. Even when it's full, you do want to come all the way and hang out in here casting your spoon. Why? Because there's that exchange of water coming in and out. And then you have these stalker trout that are swimming in here. And you got the big browns and the big fish that have been in this lake for a long time that are hanging around in here waiting to ambush those fish. So this is just a great place to check out. And again, it is the natural lake here. So always good. All right, guys, let's move into the last most productive spots on this lake. So, for the last and most productive are the inlets. These are the inlets, and there are quite a few of them. And depending on the snow years, some of these are a little better than others, but there's always, those variations of snowfall every year. But for the most part, these are flowing, even in some of the slower years, even if it's just a trickle, they do flow. So, you can see the main North Fork Bishop Creek right here. And obviously, this is going to flow no matter what. It's a very powerful creek system and does flow. But these spots are incredible. And there is like a waterfall above here, and you can hear it, and it is quite loud. But this is a fun place. I've actually hiked back. It's been many years since I have, but I've hiked back to this location many times, and it's worth it. If you do it once in your life, it's kind of a nice thing to do. But I also recommend just getting a rental boat, even for just sightseeing. Just go back here, and if you do fish back here, the water, it drops off really fast once you get into the lake here. But there's a silted, sandy area right here, and this area is where you want to try. And you can see, even if the lake is full, so it'd be all the way up here, you see that channel? This is where you guys want to hang out, is right over the top of this little S like shape right here, this wave of a channel. If the lake is full, and you can see and mark that by this little peninsula right here, right off of there is the old channel, and that is always good. So because if the lake is full, the water will come all the way up to here, and the main inlet will actually be right in here, and it's usable no matter what condition. I mean, this is going to flow no matter what, and I think you guys will catch a lot of fish. Now, this is where you have a chance at some real big fish in this lake. Some of the bigger fish every year, and Lake Sabrina does not produce a whole lot of big fish, but again, people at Parchers have been buying some fish and putting them in this lake, and there's a really good chance that some of those fish are probably going to be showing up in this back area right here throughout the season. So 100% worth it. Quite spectacular in the spring when it's flowing real heavy. But definitely check it out. Now, moving in, there's other areas here that you can see. There are other creeks that flow in. Some of this is just braided stream action out of Bishop Creek when Bishop Creek overflows and can pour out. Sometime in the future, I think that you'll probably see a breach here, and the creek will change direction and head out maybe this way. But you can see there's all kinds of little inlets, and I caught my biggest fish out of Lake Sabrina was actually in this corner right here, right in this flats. Now you can see there's this huge sand shelf right here, and there's a big shallow area in this corner. No matter how full the lake is, there's like a shelf right here, and this shelf is always very productive back here at the inlets. It's just because of all the years of sand being pushed into the lake from these inlets. Now, these are also some other inlets. They got like these little braided streams in here, but these are an interesting area because I have fished this area quite a bit, and actually on a flow tube, which is an absolute nightmare to kick a flow tube all the way back here because I believe it's close to a mile. I want to say it's close to a mile, but I I did float you back here more than once back in the day. And you really got to do that once to respect how hard that is. But right here, I thought with the water coming in that the fish would just be straight out, and they're not. A lot of these fish are hung up and hugging the shoreline right here. So when the lake is full, you can see the water will be all the way up here, right at the edge of these bushes and trees right here. And the fish will be all along the shoreline. And that doesn't change when the water's down like it was in this. The fish will all be here. So don't kick all the way to shore and fish over here. You want to park it out here and cast in toward shore so you don't spook the schools. But there are some really nice fish. If you have a motorboat, don't just come plowing up to this with your motor cranked, which I see people do, and they ruin the bite for themselves. Cut the motor way before you get here and coast in. And then, you can ease the anchor into the water so you guys aren't making all kinds of racket and scaring the fish away. But if you can get in here and sneak into this corner, there's always some really nice sized fish hanging out in these inlets, and it is one heck of a spot. So again, there's lots of them, and you can find these on any map. They will show all these inlets, and like I said, they run pretty strong most years. Even in the drier years, they're still flowing. Some of these smaller ones are kind of a trickle if it's a drought year, but you always have the main Bishop Creek as an option. So anyway, that's it, guys. So thank you guys for hanging out with me. Again, this is just one of the better lakes up in the Eastern Sierra, and we have more videos just like this one. So if you guys like this video, make sure you hit the like and subscribe, because we're going to do one on all of the bigger lakes up here, South Lake, North Lake. We're going to do all the Mammoth Lakes, and we're going to continue this series, very popular series. And I haven't done these in a very long time, but we're bringing them back. Make sure you guys check out the Pleasant Valley Reservoir one that I've already done. These are great videos, and we will have drone shots in all of them. So anyway, that's it. If you guys still have questions or you're new to fishing and this isn't enough, get to my Patreon, guys. $5. We do have giveaways every month. On the end of every month, we give away all kinds of stuff: bait, rods, reels, and we're doing meetups. So it's a fun thing for you guys to do and a great place to ask a lot more questions. If not, we'll like to see you on the next video. Hit the subscribe button on the channel, and we will see you guys on the next one. Bye for now.